Move to approve the minutes of the previous meeting.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Ayes have it. Okay, we have a presentation today. Tony from Marshall University is going to be here, and he's going to make his presentation on the Marshall Innovation Project in the cybersecurity facility. Tony?
I tell people when I first took this job at Marshall about 9 months ago, people asked me, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm Chief Legal Officer. And then I said, well, I work in government relations, which means I work for Charlotte and Sarah. And then finally I got this title called something to do with external relations, but I found in the end it's easier for me to say, good morning, my name's Tony Stroud, I work for Brad Smith. I get instant credibility then. So, well, thanks for giving me the opportunity here to talk about something that's very exciting to Marshall University and what we really think could put us on the map. West Virginia has had great success recently. I know some of you have gone on the Choose West Virginia tours, and I think those have been hugely successful. That we're getting out now and telling our story. We have Nucor here, we have Berkshire Hathaway, we have Green Power, we have Form Energy, and the list goes on and on and on. And it's so refreshing to me to see people looking at this state in a different light. I mean, you've probably heard President Smith say repeatedly, too many times we've allowed our story to get told out in a negative light. And now, thanks to the work of this legislature and our Economic Development Office, we are telling our own story, and it's paying dividends. We are having people come to this state like we never have before. People are talking about West Virginia now. I told a friend of mine the other day, I just wish I was about 20 years younger so I could see what's going to happen in this state in the next 20 years and how it's going to take off. The results are evident. We're seeing unprecedented growth in this area, and I think we now have another opportunity, and that is in the area of cybersecurity. West Virginians have stepped up to the plate many times. You've heard President Smith's speech about we mined the coal that forged the steel, that carried the trucks, that fought the war. West Virginians have always stepped up to the plate. And I think we have a golden opportunity here with the Cybersecurity Institute that we are trying to get started at Marshall University. One of the biggest threats that we face as a nation is from cybersecurity. Not only our country, but many of our businesses. Look in the past couple of years at some of the attacks that occurred. Microsoft in 2021 had 30,000 companies here and 250,000 companies nationally that were hit by cyber attacks. We all know the Colonial Pipeline story, what happened there a few years ago. JBS Foods, which is the world's largest supplier of meat out of Brazil, they supply 1/5 of the world's meat. They were hit by a cyber attack and were shut down for several weeks last year. And most recently here, a couple of our community colleges got hit by a ransomware attack. So the threat's real. In fact, since 2010, significant threats in cybersecurity have increased by 700%. As you heard President Smith say yesterday, we have identified 6 pillars here at Marshall University where we think we can make a difference, and one of those pillars is cybersecurity. We think this fits perfectly with our plan to have in-demand curriculum. If you look at the demand in the Cybersecurity Institute, it's kind of staggering. We want to prepare our students for jobs. We have to find a way to keep our students in the state, or our graduates here in the state of West Virginia. Cybersecurity is one way that I think we could do that. Currently, this industry is a $173 billion industry that's projected to grow at 8.5% over the next several years. By 2028, cybersecurity will be a $266 billion industry. And we can play our part in that going forward. These are high-paying jobs. I think you may have heard Bill Gardner, some of you speak a couple of days ago. These are 6-figure jobs that these students are getting out of college with cybersecurity. So these are well above what the median income here is in West Virginia. Read a recent article in Forbes magazine talking about the demand for cybersecurity employees. Cybersecurity industry has had a 0% unemployment rate since 2016. 0% since 2016. Currently, it's expected by the year 2025, there will be 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity that will grow at about 33% per year up to the year 2030. So as you've all heard, our next war will probably be fought through cyber. And that's why this is so important. We can help fill this need in our country. We have the ability, we have the people, we have the capability to do that here in West Virginia. As President Smith said, we want to be a prosperity platform for the state of West Virginia. We want to promote individual success, have innovative ideas, and promote economic growth. I think the Cybersecurity Institute checks all three of those boxes here at Marshall University. First, the individual success. This gives our students a platform to grow. The Marshall for All, Marshall Forever. You can continue to grow. We want to offer certificate programs in cybersecurity, offer different curriculum across the board for those in cybersecurity. What a great way to innovate. When I talk to you about what some of the space would look like in this building, you'll see some of the innovations that can occur within the Cybersecurity Institute. And of course, the economic impact. We want to grow an ecosystem here. If you want to take a look, the University of Texas San Antonio has done a similar approach to what we have done. They have about 60 government and industry partners who created this ecosystem around their facility in San Antonio, Texas. That is our vision for this facility here at Marshall University. As you all know, we have a problem keeping graduates in our state. The last statistic I saw, only 39% of our graduates stay in the state of West Virginia, and we've got to change that trajectory. We've got to keep some of our people here. And these types of jobs are the jobs I think that we can create that will make that happen. How did we get started on this path? Well, thanks to Senator Capito, Mr. Bissett, we were fortunate enough to get a $5 million grant from the federal government. We have 2 additional put in for another 14 and 15 million to help build out the infrastructure for our cybersecurity system here at Marshall University. The first phase of that is set to begin construction this fall. What we're going to build is a security operations center over in our engineering annex building. This will replicate what Washington, D.C. has to monitor the country, to monitor our country for cybersecurity attacks. We're going to have one here at Marshall University. I was asking someone to describe me from the Department of Defense. We had a meeting with them, what this actually looks like. And for those of you old enough to remember the movie War Games with Matthew Broderick, and the room they were in with the raised platform, the theater seating, the screens hanging off the wall, that's exactly what they will look like. Bill Walker from the Department of Defense defined it to me as you take the bridge of the Star Trek Enterprise, you marry it to an Apple store, they have a child that you infuse with the blood of Tony Stark, and that's what this security operation is going to look like. So this is going to be high tech. This is going to be a really big deal if we can pull this off. One of the things that we need to do, however, part of the deal that we have with the Department of Defense, we need to build a cybersecurity institute. It's essential that we have the infrastructure and the resources to provide the other things that they need. Phase 2 of this project is what we are working on now and trying to get kicked off the ground, and that is our Institute for Cybersecurity. What is our vision here? Our vision here is a facility that will help accelerate cyber research and development capabilities, which will result in faster solutions to critical services. Those of you who took the tour with us yesterday on the Innovation District, this will be part of that district. It'll be just across the street here on the corner of Alger Boulevard is what we vision for this project. Marshall University will soon be designated as a Center for Academic Excellence by the National Security Agency. Once we get that designation, that what kicks us up to another level. Not very many institutions can carry that designation with them. And we're going to have that shortly here at Marshall University. If we are able to get this building built, and just give you an idea of where it looks on this structure or on the map here. So those of you who started on the Brad Smith Business Innovation for yesterday, it will be the anchor of one end of this district, and the Cybersecurity Institute will be here anchoring the other end of the district. I think those of you who got to go on the tour saw some of the other ideas that we're envisioning all along this corridor on 4th Avenue in downtown Huntington. So what's this building going to contain? This is just kind of a 3D rendering of it and what the building is going to look like itself. It's going to be a force structure of probably 70 to 80,000 square feet is what we would like to build. That will give us the ability to bring in some industry partners and have some additional space. We've been in conversation with the Department of Defense. If we are able to build this building, and it would have to be a Marshall University-owned building, then we'll be able to put some additional governmental agencies in here. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second. Again, it's anchored on one end by our new College of Business, which is scheduled to be completed at the end of October. This is a 78,000 square foot building. This is going to be a state-of-the-art. It's going to be a beautiful building. It's going to have a 360-foot auditorium, finance lab, computer labs, a lot of collaboration space. My favorite part about it is when you're driving down 4th Avenue, you'll be able to see a stock market ticket tape rolling through the glass. We're very excited about this. We really think this is going to help with our goal to increase entrepreneurs here in Huntington and here at Marshall University and for the state of West Virginia. This is another photo of what the business school is going to look like. When I walked through there yesterday, and I thought, wow, I can't believe this thing's going to be completed in October. So I don't know, Senator Swope, is that possible?
They're on target so far.
All right, good. So let me go into a little bit about what this space is going to actually be in this space. And this is where I get really excited and kind of get geeked out about some of the things we're going to contain. So this is going to have, of course, classroom space. We want to make this an academic center where our students will come, where our students will learn, where they can train. And what will some of this space look like? We're going to have a cyber competition team suite. Our cyber team here at Marshall has been very successful in the top 1% in the country in cybersecurity competitions lately. We want to build a competition suite for them to continue to learn and continue to grow. We want some anchor suites for some of the corporate partners. And we've been in discussions with several of those. We are right now working on a project on the dark web for Homeland Security, a private company called CACI. So there's a lot of work going on right now within this industry, and we're hoping to be able to grow this, hoping to be able to generate jobs with this. We're going to have some secondary partners. Again, we want to build this ecosystem I mentioned like they have at the University of Texas at San Antonio. There'll be video forensics labs here. There will be mobile forensics labs. We want to have 4 of those where our evidence rooms will be set up so students can come in and collect and gather digital evidence and learn how to work with that evidence. We're going to have a lab in here that will be open source intelligence. And what this is this information and data that's available to the public. So you can go out and gather this data and then develop intelligence information for the government based on what people put out in the public, Facebook, Twitter, all of the social medias or other public areas. We also want to have a industrial control system. And what this is this will be a system that mimics the infrastructure of a city. So it would have the water supply, electric supply, and students can play around in this and find out what potential a cyber attack could have on a city's water supply. We want to try to build a smart city within this and hopefully Huntington will be the city that we're able to use where we'll be able to monitor the city of Huntington in real time for any cyber attacks or any cyber threats that they may have. We're also looking at building a SCIF, which I've never heard of some of this stuff until I started getting into this, but a SCIF is a sensitive compartmented information facility. And this is a very secure, we've been in discussions and subject to the needs of the West Virginia National Guard, we may be able to put a SCIF within this facility. A SCIF, one that's familiar when President Trump was in office, he went to his home, what he called his winter home in Mar-a-Lago. They had to put a SCIF there for him to be able to conduct his business as president. So these are very high-tech, very high-secure type areas that we will have there. So we're hoping to have all of these different labs in this building that we can, the Internet of Things. Has anyone ever heard of the Internet of Things? You know what the Internet of Things is? I've never heard of that one either, but the Internet of Things is if you have a smartwatch, smart appliances, smart meters, all that data goes out right across the web. So again, another area where cyber attacks, we're going to have a lab in there to train students how to avert cyber attacks in these kind of areas. Phase 3 of this model, and I think this is very important as well, is we're working on a grant right now with the Appalachian Region Commission. We've had some discussions with Co-Chair Gail Manchin, and they are envisioning the Appalachian Region Commission as a cybersecurity hub in the Appalachian region in the 13 states that they cover. I think we are uniquely positioned in the center of the Appalachian region to be this hub. As you know, we are outside the blast radius of Washington, D.C., which makes us a prime place for something that has this much security and this much need for the United States. What we hope to do here is partner with other community colleges and other universities and create a set of curriculum that would have to be approved by NSF. Once this gets approved, we'll be able to train others. So this will be a facility where we can establish the curriculum, put that curriculum out to other universities, and help the entire country with our training for cybersecurity. We're going to be able to train law enforcement officers here. We're going to be able to train anyone who needs to come in and have training. We will host seminars. We will host conferences. So this is a very exciting opportunity that I think we have here in Huntington, here in Marshall University, and for the state of West Virginia. So thank you for your time, and if anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Tony. I think it was a great presentation. So, we have any questions for Tony?
Yes, sir.
You mentioned phase two.
Yes.
Kind of like in the planning stages.
Yes.
Have you kind of come up with a ballpark estimate as to what it's gonna cost?
The phase
Things like
two, we have, thank you for that question, it's gonna be around $45 million to build this structure. Yes, ma'am.
So what's the timeline of offering this to students?
We currently have a cybersecurity program here at Marshall University now, so we're offering that. This will just give us the ability to expand this program and attract more students. So we would like to be able to have this done within the next couple of years. That would be our goal.
And how many students do you have enrolled in the program?
Do you know, Charlotte, I think it's a couple hundred, but I'm not sure exactly. Yes, sir.
Yes, the school itself, obviously, you're speaking of its impact on its footprint here on campus and things. Has there been any investigation or outlook to what peripheral businesses may attract to the area?
Yes, we have had interest. We've talked to some data technology companies. We already have Fairmount Properties is the private company who's assisting us with the development. They have letters of intent from a couple of companies already based on the fact that we're planning and trying to build out this innovation district here.
Anyone else?
Thank you all.
All right. Thank you, Tony. Okay, next on our agenda is a couple of bills that have been we've been working on for the past couple months, 3 or 4 months. And the first one that we're going to talk about is going to be House Bill in the 2023 session. It was House Bill 2064, Tourism Commercial Opportunity Zones. So, Council, if you would like to explain that, please. Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll wait till a copy gets handed out.
Thank you very much.
The one we're getting now is the small business payroll tax.
It's on the. Thank you.
You're right.
Right, we had a big problem. Our ordinance to split it to 2 and 3, but there's something saying like, it's not good.
Anybody know? Yeah.
Everybody got a copy of it. The numbers on the front, I've got 4 X's for what number it'll be on introduction. But again, this is a rework of what was House Bill 2064, which was also in the last session was a rework of a bill that we ran through the select committee on the House side in 2022. Basically, the gist of this bill is that it's going to allow tourism, economic development, and commerce to designate, in conjunction with the approval of the counties, a zone that will be calculated based on a factor of 30, multiplied against their county population divided by 1,000. That's on page, the pagination is a little off because of the formatting, but it's the fourth page in there. Basically, the tourism and commercial opportunity zone acreage will be, means the total population of the county divided by 1,000 and then multiplied by a factor of 30. The land may be used for purposes of commercial development and improvement in that designated area of acreage. For example, an area containing 26,000 people would be calculated as 26,000 divided by 1,000 equals 26 times 30 equals 780. Thus, the equivalent amount of 780 acres eligible to be defined as a tourism and commercial opportunity zone could be designated in the county. Now, there's also a provision that allows that to be subdivided into non-contiguous areas, but that would be the sum total of the acreage that would be available to be designated. What would then be possible would that private entities could make a qualified investment in that opportunity zone, which is equivalent to or greater than $250,000 for either new construction or an expansion of existing real estate, and then that would then get a tax credit by the locality tax being classed at a residential rate as opposed to a commercial rate, and then the sales taxes that are generated out of that would also be allowed to be credited as a credit on their income tax going forward for 10 years. After 10 years, the designation as a part of that commercial zone would go away, but there is a residual amount that if there's unused tax credit as of the 10th year, that can be carried forward for an additional 5 years by the business entity. The tax credits can be passed through based on the corporate structure, if it's an LLC or an S corporation, and the tax benefits last for the 10-year period or the life of the financing, whichever is shorter. Now, the one caveat to that is if the taxpayer sells the property to a bona fide purchaser, then the bona fide purchaser gets whatever is residual on the 10-year period, but they can't kick out another 30-year or whatever period of time for their financing. So, and the one other change that we made to it was that in the original bill that ran last session, it was basically a designation that was made by the three agencies with consultation to the county, but the counties really didn't have a say in it. We've given the counties the opportunity to reject the designation if they would so wish, but if they do so, this is under the new section 4 of the bill.
Yes, ma'am.
So the question is, does this complement TIF districts or does this take over? Is there competition here? Can you explain that for the committee?
Yeah, per the terms, it cannot take place in a TIF district. They cannot be designated in a TIF district, so there's no competition.
Or there's any other questions here? These two bills that we are looking at, once we're finished with them, we'll do each bill individually. We're going to look as maybe to take a motion to be able to reintroduce these bills for the next upcoming session. So I'm going to be looking to the co-chair to be able to do that. So we've got questions answered.
Yeah, I got questions.
Good.
I think most everybody here kind of knows my feeling on tax credits. If you had a bill that had a tax credit in it, Land and Finance Committee. And the problem is just, I'll get to the thought process and Finance Committee and stuff hits the agendas, is every time we go in and provide a tax credit, there are existing businesses here that we are loading, they're taking the burden of carrying that tax system when we're just putting all these special interest groups of tax credits in there. The more we do it, the more that happens over the years. We have about 40-some tax credits, I think, right now on our books for, at least on the income tax side of things. So, many tax credits are laying there. Now, there's a whiteboard full of them dead in Finance Committee in this past session. Many of them that come through will be forward-looking, say, well, we don't receive these taxes now, so it's really not going to have an impact. The thing is that when you look historically, and those tax credits have been the same way the thought process is, it does create a pick the winners, convoluted, fractured tax code. And so tax credits always give me hesitation when coming in. So my question on this one is that have we had specific businesses that are coming to West Virginia asking for this? Are we out of step with any other states, or is it giving a great competitive advantage in a certain business or industry that we're not able to attract right now?
Well, I can't speak to the question of if anybody's kind of specifically come to us to ask for this. The chairman might be able to answer that. But in terms of this would be, again, a prospective issue. It's only going to be applied to new investments that would take place going forward that met that $250,000 or greater investment. So from the standpoint of the fiscal impact, and I don't have there, we've asked Dr. Shirley and his staff to rework the fiscal analysis. It's not quite ready yet, but I can't say that, just like the original, there wouldn't be a negative fiscal impact on current revenues because it's only prospective going forward. And they are working some additional software that is going to be able to better model prospectively what they think the growth potential, because the other thing that goes into all of these types of things, and you are right, there's a whole bunch of tax credits that are on the books that are probably dead letters that we probably could take a look at and see whether or not we can get rid of some or maybe even most of them and find the ones that work or replace the ones that don't work with something that does work. But the new software will be looking at if we grant these tax credits, these tax reductions on this end, then the projected growth is going to generate supposedly X amount of revenue, or at least forecasted the other end. So even though the amount of revenue coming in a tax incentivized regime like this would be less than if the regime wasn't there, they're going to have an ability to show there's going to be additional revenue that comes in perspective from the growth that happens. Now that doesn't, I get what you're saying, that you're taking a new investment class and saying you guys are going to get a break, and the existing business class that's in the state is not going to get that break.
Sorry for your luck.
So, and I mean, that's a policy choice that you guys obviously have to make. So.
You can project a larger amount that's going to benefit not only that business generating taxes and revenue, but surrounding businesses also generating tax and revenue. Should counter that argument.
There should be, it's the old rising tide lifts all boats argument.
Yep.
Thank you for presenting this. A couple questions and piggybacking off of Chair Patar. Well, first thing is, on the selection committee, tourism commercial zone, there's a committee, right? On that committee is comprised of people who they suggest the area, or is the area applied to them?
I think the area applies to them, but then it's the amount of the county says we're interested, or they can come in and say to the county, this would be a location that.
Well, but the county, I don't think, is on that committee. County can ultimately reject it. So is the county a part of that selection committee?
Should be. Let's see here.
And then what? And the county.
Okay, tourism, again, on the first definition, tourism and commercial opportunities are those locations designated by a selection panel of the Secretaries of Economic Development, Tourism, Commerce, or their designees with approval of county commission or municipal authorities, upon which designation the area designated and any qualified investment within it shall become a separate species of class of property subject to taxation according to its value as set forth in this article. So I don't know, I mean, there's not really a definition of the committee, but that was one of the changes that we made as it ran last session.
Yeah.
It was in consultation with the counties, but in this one, we've stated that it's with the approval of the county commission or the municipality. So they have a say in it, but then again, if they reject it, then they suffer that 5-year penalty of being able to be considered tourism. after that rejection.
Okay. And second question was, so the county would reject it for what reason? Because they would take taxes away from them potentially, or
I don't, I mean, I
they just
suppose.
don't want that, they don't want that business there?
There could be that. I mean, there's really no criteria that's put into the bill in terms of why a county would or would not accept or reject it, but I suppose there could be any number of political or other reasons why they.
Okay. And then lastly, similar to what Senator said, was about existing businesses, unfair disadvantage for existing businesses in the area. That's the only thing, 'cause I get hit up all the time. We do so much to attract new businesses here. What about the existing businesses? How will that affect them if they want to do expansion on something that didn't exist? Would they be eligible for that within that district?
I want to make sure I'm tracking. I mean, an existing business could make a qualified investment in the zone if they so desired. But in terms of, and there's also provisions in this that, let's say the zone gets designated and there is an existing business in the area that's designated already. That business can't get the rework of the property class tax or the sales tax credit on the existing footprint of it. But if they make a qualified investment that expands that existing.
So if they're growing or expanding
they'll get that. They'll
or
get that too.
adding something new that doesn't exist, they would be eligible?
Correct.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Follow up on him. So, obviously, we were talking, I guess, before this started, but, so there's two different tax credits. There's the property tax credit and then there's the sales tax credit. To clarify this too, there's already a sales tax credit, tourism sales tax credit on the books. Is that correct, up to 25%?
I believe so. I'd have to go back and look through the.
So how would that, I mean, so you wouldn't be able to double dip here, I assume, right?
Well, I mean, again, it's tied to the qualified investment. So if there's an entity that's getting the tourism tax credit, I'd have to look at and I apologize, I'd have to look at the language of that tourism tax credit in conjunction with this to say that if you made a tourism-based qualified investment in this zone, would you get both that and this? And maybe that's something that we need to look at, tweaking the language to make sure that the dip isn't.
A different types of criteria that you qualify with, I think. And then you're saying that, so would the county then have the authority to say that they're in this zone to qualify for a state tax credit or just for the county property taxes?
That the property tax piece is the county piece, and then the sales tax is the credit on the sales tax generates a credit on the income tax to either the corporation or the pass through the owners, however they.
Okay. And then taking, I think, from Senator's points that are well taken, and then my colleague here from Kanawha County, I get a lot of this. I can tell you that I don't know if they still have it or not. The previous owner of this KOA campground over here at Milton. And I think he moved in here from Tennessee or whatever, purchased that 10, 12 years ago and made the improvements on it at a certain point and talked to him one day about expanding. He wanted to expand. He said, but I'm in my late 50s. He said, why put $1 million into expanding and growing this business? And it's going to take me another 15 years to recoup that investment. He said, so, at their age, it was not financially, there's no incentive there. I don't know if something like this, but I see this all the time, majority of businesses in the state do not have a board of directors. It's owned by an individual and they have a piece of property or they have a business and they want to do something with that, but by the time they're at an age where they can do something with that, it doesn't make viable sense to take their life savings and put into something and they can't get the return out of it for 20 years. I don't know if this, but hopefully that's something we can work on.
I think theoretically, if that business qualified as a tourism-based business and they expanded or improved to the degree to which it met the $250,000 threshold, then I think theoretically, if the conditions were right, at least it would. I don't know if it would be enough to incentivize them to do it, but it would create a little bit more return earlier on.
Right. So I don't know if this is the bill, but I think there's something there that we could sit down and work on to address that issue because it it's not just in tourism, it's, you know, a lot of different businesses across our, we're a small state, we're small business people, and, there's a lot that want to do something, but they just, it doesn't make viable sense for them to go ahead and make that plunge.
Anyone else?
Just to clarify, this sales tax, this $1 million cap per year,
Yeah,
is that $1 million in sales, or is that $1 million in sales tax?
well, it's the amount, it's capped at an amount of credit that basically what happens is the entity has to apply to the Department of Economic Development. They say, we had this much in sales. You know, let's say business one has $25 million in sales tax, or whatever their calculated amount is. They then tell the Department of Economic Development has a bank of 100 million or $1 million in that tax credit to be able to apply. You apply to them, they say, yep, here's your voucher for that. That gets you your credit on your income. So, and once that $1 million cap is reached, there's no more credits that can be claimed for that year. So in any given fiscal year, the amount of credit that's going to apply is going to only be limited at $1 million.
But that's sales tax, correct, not sales?
Yeah.
So if we're saying 7%, I did the math, we have to sell $14 million of top line sales to get that 7% tax credit is equal to $1 million, correct?
Let's see, sales tax credit allowed. There shall be allowed each eligible taxpayer that maintains a qualified investment in the zone a qualified tax credit for the amount of the sales tax that is collected by the qualified investment establishment and remitted to the state after development, which may be taken by the taxpayer as an offset credit from the state for the equivalent amount of income tax that the qualified investment establishment would have had to pay for that development. So, yeah, it's their, whatever sales tax that was actually paid, that's the credit, that's the dollar value of the credit.
Thanks.
Just a question, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, I'm not sure if this is more appropriately asked of you or someone else, but when I first read this, with wording being tourism and commercial opportunity zones, I kind of gravitated toward this being tourism prime, as a perhaps initial focus. And only after reading it did that shift, because of my initial question was focused on the utilization of population to gauge the acreage available for such a zone. Is that logic then? I mean, perhaps the question is, perhaps a two-part question is, the population seems to be more oriented toward commercial development. Is that indeed the case?
You want me to?
Yeah, maybe Chairman Howell.
Okay, the idea behind it, the reason we went with the population versus the acreage, we were looking at, what do you need on tourism, commercial, you're looking at restaurants, hotels, that nature. That's gonna be somewhat based on your population, what you need. So that was the idea behind the acreage. And as the gentleman said, everything in this is perspective. So on the tax credit, when you're trying to figure out, none of those taxes are currently being collected. This is all going forward. And to the gentleman from Kanawha, when you were talking about, yes, it's open to existing businesses. So if you have a hotel and you want to double its size, the part that you double is available to get this. Again, those taxes that are not currently being collected, so it doesn't affect the state. But you also have to look at it from this standpoint. These expanded businesses are going to have employees that are going to go purchase items. They're going to maybe expand their house or buy a new house. All of that creates tax base for the state and increases those numbers. Peter Shirley was working on, he was trying to get it done for this meeting. It's easy to say that it has no effect on the current fiscals. It's all perspective. But he is actually developing kind of an idea of what we think it would bring in additional going into the future. You were asking if anybody had asked for this. Not exactly, but when looking around, and if you look at Nucor, and I just come down Route 2 when I drove down here, and all the existing, or not all, but the majority of the existing hotels, restaurants are in Gallipolis, Ohio. So if you're going to expand, you're most likely going to expand in Ohio, not West Virginia. So the idea is, how do you get them to come to our side of the river? The purpose of this goal is to incentivize it. But the nice thing about it is it works anywhere in the state. I've got Northrop Grumman in my district, which is physically on the Maryland state line. Mineral County's got only 2 hotels. All of the hotels in our area are in Allegheny County, Maryland. This would encourage those hotels to be built on the West Virginia side of the river, which contributes to our tax base and not Maryland's. Just like Gallipolis, Ohio, instead of building them there, they're going to build them on our side of the river. And if you look at Form Energy and all these other, even the Martinsburg area, a lot of this stuff is happening right on the border. And if you look at any place, even of a tourism area like Pigeon Forge, everything locates there because that's where everybody's going. So you can use this in Fayette County, the New River Gorge area. People are already coming there, but maybe we need more. This gives the opportunity to do that. Maybe, we've already got water lines out this way. We can designate this area out here. That is the idea behind it. Let's get these people into the state and not locate on the other side of the border. And again, as I said, we've got it to where it doesn't affect anybody's budget. It's totally perspective. We know it's going to be an increase in revenue to the state. Beyond that, we're trying to get those numbers for you now.
Would you yield?
Yeah.
So, let's say that we've got 2 brand new hotels that have just been built in Taze Valley over the past couple of years. Not expanding, but brand new. This tax credit's not been passed.
Right.
Now we passed the tax credit, so we opened a hotel next to them. We've helped get that competition against them with taxpayer dollars, essentially moving forward. Is that accurate?
Not really, because you could put that same hotel into this district and they could expand and take on that additional business. If the need for
I'm
the.
saying, existing ones just put all that money on the line. It takes a while to cash flow those businesses. It's not just like you can say, okay, I'm going to expand the hotel. You create a winner and loser in that situation. That's what these tax credits do.
Yes and no. I don't completely disagree or agree with you, but I don't completely disagree with you on it either. Because when we do this, and unfortunately, we pick winners and losers all the time, whether it be Nucor, Form Energy, whatever, we do it. But we only do it for these giant corporations. We never do it for the mom and pops. This allows the mom and pops to take advantage of this. But if you've got the need for hotels in an area, you probably don't want to designate that area to start with, because they're going to come in if the need's already there. But when you have this need where we're in competition with a separate area, especially these border communities, like Gallipolis, Ohio, they're going to gravitate to where those hotels and those restaurants already are to expand. And that's on the wrong side of the river. In my area, the same thing's going to happen. They're going to gravitate to LaVale, Maryland, which is the closest commercial hub where all the hotels and restaurants are. There's no reason for them to locate on our side of the river. So we're trying to give them a reason to move into the state. And there may be an area that we just like to develop within the state. Maybe there's an area of Taze Valley that's underdeveloped. Maybe we go in there. But there's no reason we can't include those new hotels in this. And maybe if they see the need for an additional 100 hotel rooms, well, they expand their business and take advantage of this for those new 100 hotel rooms. So does it create winners? Yes. But also we can help the people that are already in the business in the area by designating them into the same zone. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, still have the same concerns.
The concerns are
tax
gonna-
credit bills that fall in the finance committee every year, so that chops it up. Which means that the legislature's made the effort in passing a resolution to pass Amendment 2 that gives more broad tax relief that the state rejected. And then when we did the tax credits, just even on the president tax cut that we have against autos and those type of things, it's very, very broad. It's not going in and picking a specific winner against everybody else who's already made those investments. So, and that's the challenge I have with these tax credits.
And I understand what you're saying, but you go ahead, nobody's making that investment on our side of the river across from Gallipolis. Nobody's making that investment in Mineral County across from Allegheny County. Nobody's making that investment in some of these other parts of the state on the other side of the river or the border, wherever it may be. This gives the opportunity for us to pull those people across the border, because when they build that hotel in Gallipolis, Ohio, it pays no West Virginia taxes whatsoever. And even under this plan, if they build it on our side, they're still going to pay taxes. It's going to be a lower rate, but we got them onto our side. They're employing people on our side. Those people are paying taxes into the state, and it greatly benefits us instead of Ohio. That's the purpose behind this bill.
it's right on that flavor. I'm sorry. I'm good.
Any other questions?
Just one other thing. Maybe tweak this, have a hotel that's already in existence there, and you have a hotel that wants to come in and see market, split the discount that you have on the taxes, tax base or whatever. That way, even the existing business benefits somebody's coming into that market, because it wouldn't affect them. If they're across the river in Ohio, no, they don't get the split. If they're already invested in West Virginia, yeah, they get a benefit if somebody comes into that market. 3 hotels there, they split it 3 ways. That way, everybody benefits the marketplace.
Well, when this bill gets into committees, I mean, we can work the bill in committee, that's what we do. This is just getting the starting point.
The only caveat to that would be that, obviously, if you've already got a tax revenue stream from an existing business, if you're applying the credit to it, then there will be a fiscal impact.
That'll affect the counties.
Yeah, but that's.
Well, you still have the same market, the same amount of people staying in hotels, so all you're doing is just splitting what they had, and this hotel is paying the other 12.5%, whatever, it's still the same amount coming into the coffers.
Anyone else? Any other questions? Yes.
Just for clarification, we're talking about these zones, and that if we have an existing business, in order for them to take part of this, they would have to expand by at least, a fiscal $250,000. But it's sort of a broad thing we've all been talking about here, and so I just really want to get clarification. These zones are going to be in designated areas that at a certain amount of acreage, whether they're congruent or not, whether they're attached or we've got them here too. Excuse me. None of these existing businesses, unless they are in one of these zones, are going to be able to take advantage of this if they expand.
Correct. They would have to be
within the zone.
The county commission's one of the 4 that work on the designation, so my guess is they're gonna work with local businesses to.
Well, that's some of the language that I'd like to look at if this gets back into committee, because it's a little vague there as far as, the county commission, if what I can see now, has the ability to approve or disapprove the area. But I'm not really clear on whether or not they're part of the planning to choose it. Do they bring it to us? Do they bring it to our for approval, or are they just, here's what we think, and you guys can say yes or no? So that would be one of the things that I would.
The intent was for the 4 to work together. We need to clarify, it's not a problem.
Yeah. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any other questions? I think what we're going to do is take this bill, we're going to lay it over maybe to the next meeting, and to get some of these questions answered. And I think everyone had a lot of questions, had a lot of, not concerns, but just wanting clarification. I think it's a great bill. Talked with the co-chair, he's okay with doing this. So we're going to lay this bill over till probably the next committee meeting that we have. Committee meeting. So, okay, our next one is, yeah, and if there is any specific concerns that you have, please get with Mike's, and yeah, either email him or call him or whatever you need to do, but just to get some clarification about the bill, because I think it's a great deal, and it's something that we should probably take a look at. So, okay, our next one is the small business payroll tax credit.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is a rework of what was House Bill 3007 last session, which was a bill that delegates Hornby put together. It's essentially creating a small business payroll tax credit. And we revised it a little bit because one of the fiscal note comments from the tax division was they weren't sure exactly what tax was being asked to be credited, and so we spelled that out now in the new version. It'll be just those portions of the federal taxes that come out of payroll that the employer pays. And then made a couple other slight changes, made that also clear in the definition or the language that lists out, to make sure that it says a portion of the payroll tax assessed against the employer. Now, we added wages or in addition to just salary, clarity. And basically, in a sort of decreasing percentage of those federal payroll taxes. If you're a small business that has 15 or less employees, you can take credit in a descending percentage of the amount of that payroll tax that's paid to the federal government for each from the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth employees. If you're a qualified business that has 13 to 15 employees, you can take the credit as set forth for all 5. If it's 9 to 12, you get the first 3, 5 to 8, first 2, and if you're 1 to 4 employees, you only get 1. And again, this is the payroll tax credit kind of works the same way that the sales tax did in the other bill. That payroll tax that's given has been taken as a credit against the business's income. So that's how that's calculated, and that's how that's applied. Again, if it's an S corporation or an LLC, it can pass through to the owners and not go to the corporate. Are your questions? That's all I have on that.
That's all I got a question on. Question. So if you're a service business, so you've got real high payroll and the way that you're attracting employees is competitive salaries to get them in order to be able to provide your service. You've been in business 5, 10 years, 20 years, whatever, and then the business that has the exact same service opens up next to you, they get that tax credit, but you don't because you pre-existed. You give them more of a competitive advantage for those salaries. Is that accurate?
If the smaller business that only has 15 employees can provide that same service, then yes, the new smaller business is going to get that credit, whereas the larger business.
It'd be larger. It'd be same size, correct?
Oh yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, this is not my, among many things, field of expertise, but is it, could you or somebody generate like a table that for someone whose salary was $30,000, $50,000, $100,000, what the tax impact would be, just to kind of get a sense to quantify that?
We can probably, Peter Shirley and his fund probably can. I mean, the percentages of those federal taxes are laid out there on page 1. Right. So, whatever, again, it's going to vary, it's going to be that percentage is what's going to apply, but that, obviously the dollar value is going to fluctuate based on.
Sure, based upon the salary, right. That would be of interest, and it kind of built on Chairman Carr's question about, well, what is the impact? To me, the question would be, does that give someone that's new to the business, a significant financial incentive that would be material relative to how they might price their services or their operations relative to an existing business?
I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
So the reason I wrote the bill and I came up with it, I didn't want to include existing businesses because I thought it would really have a huge fiscal impact because obviously small business makes up for a lot of our tax base. But I think the first obstacle for small business owners and in order to put people on payroll is that payroll tax. So those first 5 employees are I think, the biggest obstacle for small businesses going which is why we did this as a pilot program to see what kind of small business we can incentivize. Because obviously since COVID, there are a lot of smaller businesses that can operate with a lot less employees in the digital field. So this incentivizes them to not pay 1099 or pay them under the table. This incentivizes the business to put people on payroll and pay the payroll tax. So that's kind of why I did SB business.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I have a question of the sponsor. So just trying to figure out, on the 15 number.
Yeah.
I guess the significance of that threshold and why that number was used in defining small businesses.
So I looked at my business, for example, I consider myself a small business. And I think once you get over 15 employees, you're generally, I consider it a medium-sized business. So I wanted to keep it for really the small entrepreneurs, is what I was thinking. When we don't do a lot of things for the really small business. I didn't want larger style businesses coming in and taking advantage of that. So it was a random, it was like 15, it kind of made sense.
Thank you.
One more question.
As I understand this, the workers are still paying their taxes going to the state. The employer is getting a percentage of taxes, not from every one of them, but from the formula that's set up. So much for a certain time for each one. 1 out of 3 or then the number goes up, but he doesn't get the entire tax credit for all that they pay in.
He being the employer.
The employer.
Correct, yeah, it's sort of it's a decreasing percentage of that payroll tax per employee from the first to, I think sorry, the first one you get 100%, and then it goes down to 5%. So, but, and then in answer to that, just for clarity, yes, but it's only on that portion of the payroll tax that's paid by the employer. The employee is contribution to the payroll, payroll tax.
Okay, we have run out of time. The bus to go to Newport is, we'll be boarding in what, 2 or 3 minutes here, so, 1 minute. So we're gonna lay this one over also and tweak it, get with Max, if you got any questions or anything on it.
Mr. Co-Chair, I move we adjourn.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, stay here.